Hi, Bleeding Critic. My name is Jessica Bayless, and I'm doing horror therapy. So you want to hear the stories of our worst nightmares. And I literally have nightmares about my grandparents' house. As a horror writer, people always want to know, like, where do you get your ideas? What goes on in your head? And I think it just comes because my family has told stories about their old house for years. So it was just a boring, like, post-World War II Cape Cod, nothing creepy. But starting from the day they moved in, my grandmother did talk about, like, just having a bad feeling. She said she found a set of rosary beads upstairs in the attic/bedroom, and they were just hanging from the ceiling, which is really weird. And she removed them, but she always thought that had been a mistake. Like, she should have kept them there because she said it just felt bad after that. There was just something that shifted when she took the rosaries out of the house. And for years, she talked about these entities that she saw. A black cloaked figure in the basement, which she claims actually brushed up against her, and a man in brown in her living room. And my aunt and uncle tell stories as well. So they lived with my grandparents while they were saving for their first house, and they stayed up in the attic. And in the middle of the night, they would hear someone calling my aunt's name, and it would be like, Debbie. And it happened more than once, and they'd always check, make sure my grandparents were okay, but they were always asleep. So we still don't know, where that came from. I never heard any sounds, and I never saw any entities, but I do know I was up in the attic one day when I was about 11 or 12, kind of hanging out. I would go there after school because my mom was a single mom and my grandparents would watch me, and I had my homework and a snack, and I was kind of just like, chilling. And all of a sudden, it was as if someone like flipped a switch. I was inexplicably frozen in terror and I couldn't move. And I just remembered moving my eyeballs and being like, how can I grab everything and get it all downstairs as quickly as possible so I never have to come up here ever again? And I was so scared I wouldn't go back up there. It was months. And then finally I did, and it was fine. But it did happen again, like a year later, the same exact thing out of the blue. And I thought that was it. I'm like, oh, people tell stories about, the old scary house in the family. It's nothing. But last night, I literally had dinner with my cousin, and she told me a story I'd never heard before. So we always had Christmas Eve at my grandparents' house, and she went upstairs to get something. And she said at the top of the stairs, she saw this like misty figure of a person hanging from the ceiling, like they had hung themselves. And I was like, Kinder, nobody hung themselves at Grandma and Grandpa's house. And she said, well, I told Grandma what I saw. And apparently my grandmother says, yeah, we thought maybe that happened. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And it turns out she saw that misty shape in the spot where the rosary beads had been hung. So you want to know where horror writers get their ideas? They come from Grandma's house. The house was sold about 7 years ago, and I still have nightmares about it. And they're the kind of dreams where you like want to turn on the lights and make sure everything's okay before you can even try to go back to sleep again. So I've done my horror therapy. I'm hoping now that I've borne my soul, no more nightmares. Do you think? Maybe? Thank you for having me, Bleeding Critic. And if people want more stories, you can check out my new book, Broken Chords. Bye.